Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 4 of the Woman in Vans series. On this episode we will cover the topic of money, which is a really hot topic if you are planning to live in a van or are even already living in a van. Don't forget to go and give some love to all the women that took part of this project. As you might have seen, they took a lot of effort and time for them to do this, so check their links on the description box. Without further ado, let's enjoy this second last episode of the series.
On the western coast, moving like a rolling stone.
I still have the same job that I had before when I was living in a house. I get my main income from painting and decorating, but I am starting to set up a business hosting retreats and teaching yoga and meditation. So what's been great about living in a van with less outgoings is that I can work less doing the painting and decorating and spend more time creatively trying to build up this new business. So my painting and decorating work is fairly static, and what I do is that I move around the location of wherever my work is, which makes it a little bit different than perhaps being able to take my work on the road with me. But it works. It works really well, and like I said, I'm able to have been able to cut my hours right down, which is really wonderful, and still earn a really nice, decent amount of money.
I sold my house, so I've been living off the savings from that. I also do some online agility classes that brings in a little bit of money, and I am a member of the board of my family's company, and so, you know, do meetings and stuff with them, and so that brings in a little bit of moolah as well.
I get asked this question a lot. It's like, how do you afford to travel? So, brutal honesty is I worked my socks off for years and saved for years, so I'm currently living off savings, and they're not going to last forever. So how to make money on the road is something I want to know as well. I do things like website design, but that's in its infancy, if I'm honest, so that doesn't really generate much money for me at all. Yeah, I need to figure that out. One thing I've heard about, and this is probably what I'm going to do, is a long time ago I trained as a TEFL teacher, which is teaching English as a foreign language, and I've heard now that you can teach that online, and I think that could be a fantastic way of earning money while on the road. So I'm going to look into that a bit more in the summer. I think I'd enjoy that too. I really loved teaching when I did it years ago, so yeah.
Well, I have a job, I have my company. I work like most other people do every day, and I just work like different places traveling with my van, so yeah, I have a normal job.
I own my own tiny house in Sweden, so I rent that out while I'm traveling, so that pretty much covers all of my expenses back in Sweden. And to support myself in the van, I do a lot of sports photography. And I also run my own company, and it's a website where I sell these fabric bags, and I also do a lot of other posters and prints. And this fall I am actually going to do some studies online, and when you're Swedish and you do studies online, you actually get a little bit of money for that. So that also helps.
We are working by now as content creators, which means we are producing content, photos, videos, text for our channels and for others. And this can pay our travels in cheap countries. But it's a very unstable income, and right now I'm working on many projects to make it more stable, to have to also be able to save some money, because so far this is not the case. I started the trip 2 years ago and lived 1 entire year just from my savings. Last winter, before going to Russia, we worked and saved up money again. because it's much easier to just work and save money than to try to work on the road, at least with my job, with my qualification. Yeah, so this is how we did it, savings, and then a little bit of writing for magazines and creating some photos or videos, or even a little bit with the Instagram channel as like advertisement stuff.
So I have some savings from the last 4 or 5 years, which would I hope they last a long time. As I already said, I'm planning to work in a farm in August, and maybe also in the winter, so I have a shelter if it's too cold or if it's too rainy. I also have an apartment. I inherited an apartment from my granny and I rent it out, so I have a steady income. It's not much because it's a tiny apartment in south of Italy, but still it gives me a little bit more of a safety net.
In the beginning I was working full-time, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Then I decided that that was interfering with my enjoyment of van life, and the whole point of why I was in a van. I was just running away on the weekend and then dreading coming back. So I started working part-time, and that was much better because I had more control. You don't use as much money in a van, so you don't need to work full-time. You just, I don't need to have lots of things, so it's only quite basic money that I live on, and that's fine by me, as long as I've got food and diesel and, you know, insurance, tax, all those kinds of things. That's all that I'm concerned about, really. Everything else is a bit of a luxury. And then when I moved to Wales to be with my partner, I didn't work at all, and I found that really frustrating and boring, actually. I don't like not working. And more recently I've just opened up an Etsy shop because I do macrame, or macrame as they say in America, and so far that's going quite well. I don't know whether it will be able to sustain me. I would like to not be in the whole work system. I would like to be able to be independent enough just to earn enough money for food and diesel and the basic MOT, tax, insurance and all of that. Whether it'll work or not, I don't know, but I'm positive, I'm hopeful about the venture. And if not, then I will probably get a part-time job as well, maybe 1 or 2 days a week, just to top the money up. It's not really what I want, because that means I also can't travel and make my own money. It means I'm kind of forced to be based in an area.
So many places I can visit, I can go. Now I'm living in a rolling home.
One of the reasons that I decided to move into the van was because I wanted to save money, so that I could spend time travelling abroad, and also so that I could reduce my hours that I was working and work part-time. And I have been in the van a couple of months now, but I've really already started to notice how much more money I can save, which makes sense really, because my outgoings are so much less. And I'm also noticing a lot more ease around money in general. There's not so much of a sort of panic about trying to find work, which is a real change actually. Having been a single parent and raising 2 kids, money was always an issue, and it's just becoming less and less of an issue, and I find that I'm able to really enjoy the money that I'm earning now. It's much more available for me to spend on things that I want to spend it on. And actually I really recommend this lifestyle for anyone who is struggling a little bit around money and finding themselves a bit trapped by the day-to-day expenses of living in a house. Yeah, it's been very easy to save money and also reduce my working hours, so perfect really.
I mean, I have been, but I've been in a really privileged situation with this money from the board, and you know, some interest from the house money and stuff. I accept my privilege and I acknowledge my privilege, and I know that most people aren't going to be in the same situation as me.
yeah, like, yeah, definitely. A van is a lot cheaper. Saying that, when you're constantly on the move, so when you're traveling in a van, it is quite expensive because petrol isn't cheap. European breakdown cover and insurance isn't cheap, particularly as I wanted it for the whole year. I paid a bit more for that. So it does have some hidden, and obviously when it breaks down, you've got to be up for fixing it. So it's not like the cheapest lifestyle. When people say it is, I want to know their secret, because it's still, you still need money to do it. But it's up to you how you go about it. For example, I travelled from the UK to Portugal, and I found my funds are a little bit low, and I managed to get a job at a campsite. So I'm staying put at the moment, and because I'm in one place, I'm definitely saving money, big time. But I know as soon as I start moving on the road again, the funds just naturally dwindle because you're just moving more and petrol's expensive. But it's definitely cheaper than living in a house. Yeah, for sure, for sure.
It's a difficult question because when I started van life, I had X amount of money in my bank, and I started during winter. And then during winter, there's no sports photography to do since it's cold everywhere. So I just had to use all of my savings all winter. And there was a week when I only had 10 euros in my bank account. So I thought I had to go back to Sweden and take a normal job. But then all of the races started and I got paid, and now I have almost half of what I started with. So I guess it kind of depends on how you count, because the money that I have now, I'm gonna have to use it during the winter. So it kind of evens out during the year, but now during summer I did save. So I don't know how to answer that question.
As I do not have let's say a real job, even though I'm working a lot, but I don't have a real job right now. This way I cannot save money, but I'm saving lots of money compared to house life, because I don't have to pay rent and my expenses are so much smaller than compared to when I lived in a flat. That even with the tiny income that I have, I can sustain my lifestyle.
I'm not able to answer this question fully, because I'm not traveling since a very long time. It's just 2 months, so I don't know if in the long run, but I guess so.
Coffee shops and cheap station meals, living my life.
When I'm thinking about my budget for the month, I probably spend about £150 per month on bills. That is tax, insurance, phone, Spotify, very important, and there's also some other expenses in that are involved with my businesses and maintaining my website and things like that. So those are kind of the regular outgoings every month. And then on top of that is food and petrol. Petrol will vary depending on where my work is. Usually spend about £40 a week, and food £50 to £60 a week maybe. Of course, on top of all of that, I have to kind of make sure that I've got money for van expenses, so that's maintenance of the van. I've been trying to keep about £1,000 at least, if not more, in savings ready for any breakdowns that will happen, regular servicing and stuff like that. So that's definitely, I imagine that that's going to be one of the greatest expenses, is just going to be upkeep of the van. But apart from that, you know, outgoings are pretty low. Yeah, definitely much lower compared to living in a house. I did also decide that I wanted to contribute somehow to because I wasn't living in one particular town or community, I wanted to make sure that I was still somehow contributing and giving back to local communities. So I really try and make sure that I buy locally wherever I am, use all of the local businesses, and I'm also at the moment just trying to pick out a couple of charities that I can contribute to. I just want to stay connected to that sense of giving back, because I just have so much more available actually, as far as resources go to give. So yeah, those are going to be some extra expenses on top of that, but that's a very personal thing.
I think it depends, like how you're traveling and how often you're moving. Because we were traveling to go to competitions and stuff, and so we would have to be from a certain place to a certain place. Like last year in July, we had to get from Sweden to Austria for a competition. So like I just burned through fuel. So I can't give you an answer. You know, you have to look at how far you're traveling, what you like eating, what you want to sacrifice, how often you need like luxury days. You know, when I first started, and I was really struggling. You know, I've come from the other side of the world, from Australia, and you know, I'd moved into this little van, and I didn't know how to find places, and you know, at that point actually money was a lot more tight. I was waiting for my divorce settlement to come in, and the money from the house and everything. And it was just so hard. Like, it's a lot, like when you move into your van for the first time, or if you're just sort of contemplating doing this, you can't feel like there is the way to do van life, and that if you book into a little hotel or a little Airbnb or something, that you've somehow failed. Because I really felt like that. Like, if I didn't tough it out and just stay all the time in the van and, you know, do the baby wipe showers and whatever, that somehow I had failed this journey or this lifestyle.
My budget really varies depending on what time of year it is. So like in the winter months, I don't have to go around a lot, so I try to stay in the same area so I don't spend a lot of money on gas. And in the summer months, I tend to drive a lot, so it costs a lot of gas money. So I think the expenses that I do have, like all year around, is about 200 euros, like the fixed expenses. And then the gas budget, I think, will be about 800 euros during the summer months, and about, I don't know, maybe 300 during the winter months. So that one varies a lot. And for food, I think my budget is about 150 or 200 euros. I don't know. I think I spend less money on food now when I live in a van, because I have to think more about what I'm actually buying, since I only have this tiny little, it's not that tiny, but I only have a tiny fridge, and I don't have a freezer. So if I buy too much food, it will only go to waste. So I think I waste less food now, so that's better for the environment and for my wallet.
When I was traveling in Europe, I have made a little calculation about what I spent per month. When I traveled Scandinavia, it was 900 euros per month, which is much more than when I traveled Spain and Portugal, where it was 400 to 500 euros per month. But also driving a lot, eating outside much more often than I should. So yeah, this is the average what I spent there. Here in Russia, it's much cheaper. The diesel is so much cheaper here. The food to eat outside for 2 people is maximum 10 euros. It always depends on how much you drive, how much you eat outside, how much you cook yourself. If you, like for example, I don't drink alcohol, or juice or anything. I just drink water, which is super cheap. I am being super cheap.
This is a very difficult question to answer for me because I'm not traveling since a long time, so I'm still not able to understand how much money do I really need. And the first month I have been driving just too much, and I spent a lot of money on diesel, and this has to change, otherwise it's too expensive, so I need to drive a lot less than that. But you know, my ideal budget would be around 600-700 euro, so I can use what I have from the rent from my granny's apartment and my savings, and you know, to continue to travel as long as possible.
Do you wanna arrive? We'll go wherever you like. We'll go wherever you